Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 32 of the FPV podcast. This week, we have somebody that almost everybody knows because you probably use one one of his items on your FPV gear somewhere along the way, or you probably have a lot more of them than you think.
If
I
we
am,
live on this planet.
yep, I am talking to Alex Greve, better known as IBCrazy, and today we're going to be talking about wings, antennas, video, you name it, and we'll probably get sidetracked somewhere along the way. Before I let him introduce himself, Elvin, say hello.
Hi, everybody. Team Furious FPV. We got new products coming out soon. Check our web pages out. Heli Direct, FPV, Pulse, blah, 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 blah. Hi, guys.
All right, Alex, or IBCrazy, which one do you prefer?
Actually, well, as we were talking about earlier about flight test, my handle on multi-GP got changed to I like steak but not cucumbers. It's
You
so
pissed
might
off somebody.
I now have another nickname as steak without cucumbers.
Oh,
Awesome.
Because
That's it. That's another name.
yeah, well, we sat down at Applebee's because Chris was too busy playing around with his little tiny whoop. And so everything around flight test was closed. We went out to Applebee's and they have these homemade pickles that are, let's just say they're disgusting. It's like adding a habanero like rub to a cucumber. It was gross. And Chris told me that if I ate one of those, he'd eat the other one. And I got partway through it. I'm like, okay, I don't mind spicy food, but this is absolutely gross. Well, he forced one down and then just tried to convince the waitress that, well, yeah, that ruined my meal, so you need to give me my meal for free. And he said it with a straight face, which is hysterical. I'm like, I can't even touch the rest of that. He's like, well, I'm changing your name right now. And he changed it. I like steak, but not cucumbers. And so, I thought it was kind of funny, so I left it.
He's like, I'm not letting you change it back. All right.
And I'm told that I had to tell everybody at flight test that was my handle for the event, which was cool and it was kind of funny. We don't take each other too seriously, so whatever.
Hey, gotta have fun. Gotta have fun.
That's right. Well, that's what it's about, right?
That's
It's about having fun. If you take everything too, that's one of the things I don't like about. There's a portion of the multi-rotor racing community that takes themselves way too seriously. It's like, guys, it's supposed to be about fun. This was a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. Don't forget that. I can't think of the guy's name, but he got so frustrated when he was racing because he took it too seriously, and then he decided, you know what? I'm just going to throw flips through the start finish gate to mix it up a little bit. And all of a sudden, his racing got a lot better, and he just felt a lot more confident because he was a lot happier. He was having fun again. It wasn't so serious.
right.
I mean, talk about a strange way to improve your times. Flip through the start-finish gate, but whatever. It seemed to work for him.
Hey, whatever works.
I've been known to do barrel rolls and victory rolls through it, so whatever.
All right, Alex. So, well, you just got back from Flight Fest, so tell us about 2016. How was it?
Well, you would have been a fish out of water, my friend, because multi-rotors did not dominate. In fact,
Nope.
there were probably 5 fixed wing for every multi-rotor.
Oh, yeah. Flight Fest, definitely.
Now, granted, there weren't a whole lot of FPV fixed wings, so that was a little bit of a disappointment. But overall, it was a great event. They had 6 full contact combat sessions, of which I was in 4.
Nice.
Maybe 5. I don't know who's counting, but it was a lot of fun. I knocked quite a few people out of the air, and to go figure, my 125 mile an hour Wyvern, I went for the guy who won the event, smashed into him at 100 miles an hour, and found out he had reinforced his entire plane with expanding insulation foam after I hit him.
Wow.
And I hit him so hard, it ripped the wires out of my servo. Not the servo extension, but the servo itself. And, I'm trying to fly out of it, thinking I have both control surfaces, and I don't because it snapped both carbon spars. I hit them so hard, I snapped both carbon spars in that wing. So I pulled up. All it did was spin and augered into the ground, destroyed the camera. Plane is okay. I mean, other than the 2 snap carbon spars, I put a little dog bone in there to fix it. But, that was a pretty expensive wreck. Despite the plane not really being damaged, other than the nose being crumpled a little bit. But it was a great event, and there was some good multi-rotor racing. I actually I entered the pro race, which I have no business in, and got my head handed to me. So I decided to, after I saw that there was a beginner race and that 3 people, well, at least 2, but possibly 3 people in the beginner race were not beginners in the least. I decided to level the playing field a little bit, enter the beginner race with an airplane.
Yes, you goofball.
So, and I actually won that event. I actually won the multi-rotor race with a 27-inch wingspan flying wing, running a multi-rotor motor, multi-rotor prop, multi-rotor speed control, everything. But they said it's not a multi-rotor, so I literally taped 2 other props to it is now.
Did they give you the prize? Did they give you the prize?
No.
No.
What class is that? I said, I don't know, measure it. Where did I tape them on? You know, which it was me goofing off. You know, I wasn't really serious. But I actually clipped the guy that was in second place. I actually clipped him coming through the finish gate on the final lap, and he was running HD camera. His handle's Billy Bob Jones. If you're listening, please send me the footage. I'd love to see it. That had to be awesome.
That would be awesome. Yeah, post it somewhere at least so we can see the flying wing fly by.
It was a really good race. I mean, he was moving pretty quick. In fact, there were 2 guys that were trying to keep up with me that crashed because they're like, we gotta beat that wing. We gotta beat that wing. Well, I'm running 70 miles an hour. You know how hard it is to get a quad to go 70 miles an hour. You know, and a wing, it's not really much. But, you know, I'm running a 2206 motor, 5.5 prop, you know, and a single 1900 milliamp hour battery. Or excuse me, a 1050 milliamp hour battery. I've got a 9-minute flight time at 70 miles an hour, so I think nothing about keeping the throttle pinned. It's only pulling like 7 amps or something through that battery, but it's a fixed wing. It's really, really efficient. And the gates, they were using the hoop gates, not the 5x5s. They're using the big hoop gates. So it's like I got all the room in the world to shoot through these gates. And a lot of people couldn't believe it. You know, anybody that flies a fixed wing, I mean, Elvin can tell you, trying to put a fixed wing through any gate is hard. It's hard. But, you know, when I first got into FPV,
that camera, I can tell you that.
And everybody, you know, when I first started, like maybe 6-7 years ago, everybody talked about long range. I'm like, screw long range. I want to shoot tree gaps. I want to shoot down roadways. I want to go under bridges. I want to do this stupid crap that should destroy an airplane. And that's all I do. So when you put a gate up, you know, my instinct is to fly through it. You know, if you give me an option, you know, one of the biggest problems I had was flying down the flight line and seeing all the tents. And going,
it's like that's a tunnel. That's a tunnel.
All I'm thinking is if one of those is empty, I am flying through it. You know,
I see a body. Take
you know, I seriously considered telling people to go clear out a tent so I could fly through it.
They would have done it. They would have done it.
I'm sure the flight test guys would have liked that too much.
No, they would have gotten angry. Yeah,
that's just what I do. Proximity flying, I mean, it's a lot of fun. And, you know, that's what the fun of the multi-rotor is. You can do the proximity flying. And they're so tough nowadays that they don't break when you crash them.
That's the thing.
You know, you get into a flying wing, you know, somewhere between a 24 and 36-inch wingspan, laminate that thing. You're not going to break that. You're not going to break. I mean, I flew a pop wing inside a cave racing multi-rotors at the Stone Blue Airlines event. You know, it was fun. Everybody's like, "Are you seriously going to do that?" I said, "Heck yeah, I am." You just watch, and I did. You know.
Now, as you can tell, these 2 absolutely love their wings. Me, okay. I am a non-believer, so they've been making fun of me since the moment we actually got on the call. They still have yet to convince me to actually try a wing. Yeah.
What's your fastest plane?
Fastest plane? I
don't have any planes anymore. I don't have any planes anymore. I gave those up. I'll tell you. I gave those up 14 years ago.
Okay. All right. Here's what I'm gonna do.
I'm in trouble now.
I've got a ready-to-fly flying wing called the Valkyrie.
The Valkyrie.
It's fully set up. It's even test flown. You can run 3-cell or a 4-cell LiPo in it. Mind you, it's got to be a big battery. It's a 34-inch wingspan flying wing, and it's got a 35-minute flight time.
Oh, that's a long time.
Drop a battery in it and drop a receiver in it. It's got a 2-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio, so you can literally sit it on its tail, hit the throttle, and it'll take off. You don't even need a launcher, and it does 85 miles an hour.
Now, hold on a
Big
second.
hill,
That's going to get you hooked on wings.
Now, hold on a
that
second.
big hill by
Okay.
your house that
Uh-huh.
you like to fly at, that is what that plane is for.
Now,
That big ass hill that you like to
That'll get
fly
you
at.
hooked on wings.
now, wait a second. This is a guy who just said that he hasn't flown a fixed wing in 14 years. You're going to give him something that's has a 36-inch wingspan?
Yeah, why not? You fly multi-rotors,
That's
right?
that's not
Figure it
that
out.
big.
Hey,
not
that's
that
pretty
big.
big.
Like this. My girlfriend learned to fly on an FPV flying wing of 42-inch wingspan.
40. First
Okay.
time out? First time out.
All I had to do was launch it. She
Right.
flew it, no problems.
Now, hold on a second. FPV on a wing, you gotta admit though, like if you come from multi-rotors, it feels strange because
It does.
it wobbles on you, and it's really hard to get.
No, it only wobbles when you going too damn slow.
Exactly.
That's the
You know that stick
problem.
on your left? Push it
Right.
all the way up.
Well,
I know
yeah, it's
multi-rotor
you're
guys
supposed
aren't
to
used
hold
to it.
it there.
You're
Hold
supposed to hold it there. Listen to these two. They're like,
That's how
You
it
see,
is.
Okay.
Here's the thing. If you hand somebody who's never flown before a controller for a multi-rotor and tell them to go fly it, if their flight lasts 15 seconds, they got lucky.
Right.
Usually it's 2
Oh, yeah.
to 3.
yeah.
If you hand somebody that's never flown before a flying wing, drop the goggles down and say, here, fly this, they have no problem. It's natural. It's like a flight sim.
Now,
It's actually not hard at all. The learning curve for a multi-rotor is very steep.
oh yes.
You know, just to get comfortable with a multi-rotor takes a lot of time. Versus a fixed wing, I mean, on launch, you're comfortable with it within the first 30 seconds. You're just like,
the first full circle you make of the area, you should be perfectly fine with it.
yeah,
You
right.
slow
So-
it, climb up, you slow down, and you dial it in, get it trimmed out, and then you let go the stick, and it's flying slight dip to the nose, and then you're like, okay, I got this, and then now you can just do whatever you want to do.
Right. Fixed wing is much more intuitive. It's much easier to learn to fly. But then there's a lot more that goes with it because you don't have 4 motors thrusting you into the air. You need actually an airfoil and fly on the actual air. You know, the wind's going to throw you around. It's not going to be solid. You're going to get a little bit of nose wag. You know, the environment is going to change the way it handles.
Definitely.
But despite that, you know, it's easier to learn, but it's harder to master. It's
Right.
much harder to master fixed wing than it is multi-rotor because of those environmental factors. You know, a multi-rotor, if you start switching left, right, that camera is going to stay locked. You know, it's going to always turn on that axis. Fixed wing isn't going to do that. If you don't,
No.
you know, if you're not careful with it, the nose will start to move, the tail will start to trail,
Right.
and you've got to learn how to control that. They all do it to some degree. You can't just, you know, in multi-rotor, I've seen guys that just jerk the sticks, just jerk it around. You can't do that with fixed wing, at least not if you're competitive.
More
You got to be
precision.
smooth. You've got to smooth it out. Otherwise, the thing's going to start to get unstable. And so it's a different world. It's easier to learn, but it's harder to master. And the way I equate it, honestly, is skiing versus snowboarding. I've been skiing for years. I also snowboard. Okay, snowboarding took me forever to learn. Okay, but the learning curve to get good at it was very, very. Once I got the hang of it, I got good very quickly. Versus skiing, most people can get on skis and go, but to master it takes a long time. And that's kind of the way it is with a fixed wing versus multi-rotor. You know, your fixed wing is your skis. You know, it's much easier to learn, but it's much harder to master. And your multi-rotor is your snowboard. You know, it's harder to learn and it's harder to get in, but once you've got it, it's much easier to master it. So it just depends on what you like. I mean, I've been flying fixed wing since I was 16 years old. So, you know, and I'll be honest with you, I never got bored with it.
I don't know.
I got
all kinds of different flying, though. You know, that's
You know,
right.
I actually.
That's
Go ahead, Albert.
that. The thing is that there's all different kinds of flying. I mean,
Oh yeah,
fixed wing. You know, there's 3D. There's sport flying. There's and there's competitions for all of these. You know what I mean?
yeah. Pattern flying is
And-
honestly what
yeah,
impresses me the most.
Yeah, pattern flying is just ridiculous. I mean,
Well, it's just the amount of precision a pilot needs to fly like that. 3D, you can cover up a lot of stuff, just by hanging
unless
that
you're
thing
in
in the air.
Germany.
But pattern, there's no room for error.
Okay.
Unless you're in Germany at the big German 3D thing, you can't.
Right.
Them guys, man, is masters.
Oh yeah.
So hold on, what's pattern flying? You gotta define this. For me.
Pattern flying is flying it's a pattern. It's a very rugged, deliberate pattern where the airplane is not curving. It's flying a straight line. The turns are very precise, exactly whatever you intend to be, 45 or 90 degrees. They're like snap turns. You snap 90 degrees and you stay there. You snap roll 90 degrees and then you fly on edge and you stay there without changing altitude. The vehicle cannot drop. It cannot climb, riding on edge. Then it goes upside down. Again, stays straight and level without climbing or diving. And every time the airplane maneuvers, your lifting profile changes. Because when you're flying knife edge or on the side, you're using the fuselage as your lifting body versus the wings. The wings are now dead weight. Yeah. So pattern flying, to me, if you can fly pattern well, that is the top, what I'd consider the top tier of pilots. That, or if you can pylon race. I can't pylon race to save my life. My depth perception is there. Now, FPV, sure, all day long, but you haven't seen, until you've seen a pylon race, you've never seen anything fast. These things run these pylons at 170 to 180 miles an hour. Plus what's wild is they got a turn marshal out there going, yeah, he made that. It's like, that's 180 miles an hour. You blink, and that thing could just go, if it hits you, it's going through you. There's a bit of danger behind it. So,
hey everybody, it's FPV Fly Girl here with your tip of the week. And this week, it's another storage idea. So a lot of you that race use Emax motors, and if you do, they come in these little boxes. So what I've done is I've actually pulled the insert out of the box and used the empty case as a way to store all the parts for the tiny whoop. So if you've gotten in on the craze, you can use these kinds of boxes to keep your USB charger, your extra batteries, and even your spare props, all in one nice, neat little package. Well, that's it for now, and I'll catch you next time. Have a great flight.
Hold on a second. The camera turned off. No, so...
Oh, they all turned off. Mine turned off too.
They all turned off.
I don't know what happened there, but... okay, so I know both of you are passionate about it. If a new guy came up to you and said, hey, why should I learn to fly a wing? What is your answer to him?
It's easier. It's less expensive. It's easier to learn. And it's more capable. You're going to get a longer flight time. It's much easier to learn. There's no programming. With multi-rotor, you have to program a freaking... the flight controllers, that's integral calculus, for goodness sake. Proportional integral derivative.
It is getting better.
It might be getting better, but it's still pretty intimidating. All the wires, all the connections, all the programming. You know what happens if you take a flight controller out of a fixed wing? It flies. You know what happens if you take a flight controller out of a multi-rotor? It doesn't. Anytime somebody comes from the multi-rotor world, I get this all the time. What flight controller should I put in that wing? And I tell them, you don't. You don't put a flight controller in a wing. You go, well, how does it fly? I tell them, on physics.
On lift.
It's just much easier to learn. If you're just getting into the hobby, fixed wing is just so much easier to get into. It's natural. It feels like flying a flight simulator. It's less expensive. The aircraft are much, much cheaper than a multi-rotor. There's no programming. There's no nothing. And your flight time's a lot longer because you're not thrusting the vehicle in the air. You're using the wing for lift. On the flip side of it, right now for FPV, multi-rotor is much more popular. There's not very many fixed wing races going on, even though the Drone Nationals is having a fixed wing race. It's gaining popularity, but there's no doubt there's a lot more multi-rotor racing going on. Multi-rotors can fly in a smaller field, unless you have a huge backyard. You're not going to fly fixed wing back there. No. And the multi-rotors tend to crash a little bit better. Fixed wing, they're a little harder. They take a little bit more time to repair and a little more skill to repair. So there's pros and cons of it. But I tell anybody who wants to get into FPV specifically, even if they want to get a multi-rotor, I say start out with a fixed wing. Go get any fixed wing platform and get used to flying with a camera and get used to the controls, and then jump to the multi-rotor. And because that way, you get over the frustration. I mean, there's so much frustration with all the technology, and it's never well documented. And a fixed wing just goes and flies, and that way they can get the experience of flying. And then they can move on to the more complex ships, the multi-rotors, the collective pitch helis, that kind of stuff. Start with something that's easier to learn. Nobody starts math with trigonometry. You start with the basics. So you don't want to start, and that's putting it simple, because like I said earlier, the flight controller in a multi-rotor is integral calculus, for goodness sake. It's pretty complex. So
it's tough.
I tell them, if anything, use fixed wing as a stepping stone, knowing full well they'll come back.
That's okay. Elvin, what about you? You got an answer? You got something to add on?
He touched on pretty much most of it. I mean, for me, I think the main thing is the room. That's what I found that makes multi-rotors the more positive over the fixed wing, mostly is because of the room. You don't need as much room. You can go to a small park, and now we got the tiny whoops. I mean, now you don't even have to leave your house. I mean, most guys aren't. Between the house, the garage, and maybe the workshop, they have plenty of room to fly between them and 2 or 3 of their friends. So, I think that's truly but I like planes because the flight time, I like the natural flight. I like knowing, feel. Right. And I like one of the things that I like knowing that if my battery starts acting up, or like if my voltage gets low, I can still fly. Yeah. I can still, if I'm up high enough, I can make it home without hitting the throttle or falling out of the sky and landing in somebody's backyard. You touched on a really good point here about the amount of space. And one of the things is I live in a very rural area, and I have for the last several years. Mm-hmm. But I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I also lived in Cleveland, Ohio. And that was always a chore, was to drive to a field large enough. Mm-hmm. Now I can just fly off my back porch. There's plenty of room to fly here. I live in Central Virginia, so there's all the room in the world to fly. Yeah, but that's the big thing. I mean, if you live in inner city or even in the suburbs, sometimes finding a place to fly a fixed wing gets challenging. Golf courses are one of my favorite places to hit. One of the biggest impacts in fixed wing in our lifetime was the electric park flyer. It was the ability to put an electric plane that could fly in a large park, and that was really, a game changer for fixed wing. And then multi-rotor comes around, and now you don't even need a park; you just need your front yard. Right. So, it's different strokes for different folks. I do both. I fly. I have several multi-rotors. There was a flight test episode where I actually came in second place with a Y6, hexacopter. Okay. A coaxial hex, they call it, over under motors, all scratch built. Mm-hmm. Well, I say scratch built, but I have a laser cutter in my basement, so that's
a little bit lucky in that.
It's more of a production machine. But I like to break convention. My favorite vehicle is still a tricopter. And in fact, at the Buddy RC event, I raced a tricopter. Why? Because I could. And the tricopter is so fluid. To me, the tricopter is a fixed wing in the multi-rotor world. It's just very fluid, very smooth. It's a very different feel from a quad. A quad is very rigid. It's very structured. And you could jerk the controls around all you want on a quad and it'll do fine. You do that on a tricopter and it's like a dog wagging its tail. It's looking all over the place. But David Vindestall for RC Explorer, he prefers tricopters as well. You know, and if you're like, well, I kind of like a tricopter, but I kind of like a quad, go with the Y6. It's the best of both worlds.
Right.
You know, and they're so unusual. I mean,
Well, they're kind of hard to build too, and they're hard to.
Even a Y4. I mean, if you
why not? Well, the thing is, look, I can tie two wooden dowels together and make a quad frame, but a tricopter takes a lot more ingenuity and a lot more time.
Yes.
And I think everybody who's buying like quad after quad after quad is really doing themselves a disservice by not trying another vehicle. There are other vehicles out there. Try a Hex, try a Y6, try a tricopter. It's very, very different. You're getting a very different ship and a very different feel, and you know you might like it. I did. I certainly did.
I think a tri is actually fun, a fun idea to build. It's just that you're sacrificing some durability when you actually go with.
You're sacrificing a lot. I mean, it's a different ship. You typically have longer flight time, but you don't. It's a fluid response rather than a crisp response. A tricopter wants to conserve momentum, where a quad wants to start and stop really quick. You know, one of the great things to do with a tricopter is to find a park with a lot of trees that have been cleared underneath, and just go slalom them, you know, in and out of the trees. It's just such a fluid ship. Figure 8 racetracks really cater to tricopters. You know, fluid tracks without the real quicks. But if you're getting the stop and start, you know, a tricopter kind of falls apart because of that yaw servo. And yeah, you do sacrifice a lot of durability. I mean, unless you're talking about a high-speed race course, I would race a quad all day over a tricopter. But if you give me a nice fluid figure 8, I'm going to race a tricopter.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it's kind of true. Never thought about that. So
yeah, it's just a little different. I mean, that's the thing is we associate every multi-rotor as a quad, but you know, there are a lot of other ships out there that don't get a lot of recognition. Because people just don't know they exist. And it's not that they're bad vehicles, it's just they don't get the publicity because they're more complex, they're harder, they're more difficult. But on the other hand, you know, I tell people like this, if you want to learn PID tuning, build a tricopter and tune it. If you can tune a tricopter, you can tune anything. Because they're hard to tune. They're very hard to tune.
That's the reason why I don't touch them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, I don't blame people for not touching a tri, but a Y6 is easy to tune. Okay. They are really easy to tune. They're a little goofy, but the tuning isn't too bad.
All right, so before we jump out and talk about another subject that's close to your heart, talk to me a little bit about long distance, because I know both of you are big advocates for a long distance FPV. So where do you find the joy in that? See, look, Elvin, he just can't even keep a straight face when he's doing it.
I'm of the thought that long range is a personal goal. It's an achievement. It's not so much fun. It's a technical challenge. It's something to overcome.
Yes.
Okay, and that's what it is, because you have to know the technology. You have to know.
1 mile.
Look,
2 miles.
If you're flying within 200 feet of yourself, anything will do, and you can make anything work. All right. But when you fly long range, that system has to be tuned in. You really have to know what you're doing. Once you break the 2 mile threshold, everything has to be right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a technical challenge. You know, around here, I am surrounded by mountains. Okay. I am in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. Here's the thing. Long range to me is 7 miles. You break 7 miles out here, you lost your plane because you went over a mountain range and it's gone. Okay, now in Florida or Arizona, sure, 20 miles is easy. In Arizona, 20 miles is easier than 4 miles here. But most people ask me, well, hey, Alex, what's your range record? I go, you wouldn't believe it. It's only 5.5. I've only gone 5.5 miles because I'm surrounded by mountains, you know, and that's as far as I can go without ending up over the other side of a mountain range, you know.
And then losing it.
But on the other hand, one of the greatest things is just when you're flying long range, just take in the scenery. I mean, you're flying like a bird, and the scenery is just so gorgeous, especially around, you know, about this time of year, about 7 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, everything looks like it has this gentle pastel to it. You got these really, really rich, saturated colors. The wind is usually calm, and it's just so peaceful. It's
big red.
You know. And Alvin will agree, you know, that time of day, it's just very calm just to cruise right along, you know?
I've seen his videos. I've seen him. He just likes to cruise out. It's like, what's your record, Alvin?
I pull up and I just, like, I get this idea, like, I'm going to go out. I'm going to take off, and I'm going to go out 2 miles. And then I take off, and I get up there, and I'm like, this is just so freaking cool, man.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Wow, man, I don't have to go far at all. Shit, it's just the whole thing is how long I can stay in the air. It's not about how far I can get out, you know. I know my system is good for 5 kilometers. I know that. You know, I've done the math, you know, so I'm not worried about it. I just, you know, if I don't see something out there I want to go flying around, there's no real reason. And for up here, we're trying to get some guys to do some formation flying up here. And, you know, there's a couple of guys I like to fly with, you know, and those guys like flying with me. So we all been working separately, trying to get dialed in so that we can, you know, get together and fly formation, make sure everybody's got their stuff squared away. And we got one more guy.
Difficult. Flying formation is really hard.
And
people think it would be easy, but once you get near another plane and you get into the prop wash, the turbulence from those wings, you just get bopped around.
That's why everybo's got to know their plane.
Yeah.
You gotta exactly.
And you got to always make very gentle, smooth turns.
Yeah. No erratic flight.
No.
And that's the problem right now is like everybody's been flying. They're just so fascinated with the fact that they can fly out to 5,000 feet. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it's a great thing, but so they take off and they're out to 5,000. Woo! Look, I'm out at 5,000. I'm like, they're like, where you at? I'm just cruising, dude. Just cruising. You know, I'm like, the Big Slur cruises at about 35 miles an hour and just get it up there. And I lock the throttle at about quarter throttle and just leave it there and just.
Yep,
that's all it.
That's I've had a couple of airplanes. My first time out to 2 miles, I was sweating bullets because I was only on 72 megahertz for control, and I'd never taken a plane out that far. And I didn't have an autopilot in the daggone thing. I didn't have anything. It was bone. I mean, I was 400 feet off the deck. I was just cruising. I'm like, my OSD said 9,000 feet, and I'm like, well. At a little over 12,000, I made 2 miles. Let's just go do it. And I did it. You know, and on the way back, I just kind of just gained some altitude and just kind of lit all the way. Just took the plane, just glided all the way back. It was just very, very peaceful. And another thing that I haven't done in a while and I swear I got to break this plane out is my warm liner. I have a forward swept wing warm liner I was actually the first FPV pilot in Model Aviation magazine with an FPV plane. And that was with that warm liner. You know, you take it up in the air, you shut down the motor, and you just glide, and you look for thermals. I actually had an L1D, a last one down Vario, which very few people know what it is, but it was Raphael Pirker. Everybody knows it was Trappy, Team Black Sheep's first product. And it comes through the audio line and tells you if you're in an updraft or a downdraft. And you wouldn't believe it, but on a 22 milliamp hour battery, I can keep that plane in the air for 4 hours. Just hunt lift. I never have to take the throttle out. All I look for an updraft. That's right.
And that's how you know either you're climbing or you're descending.
It's almost surreal flying on, you know, on natural updrafts. It's truly amazing. It's like something isn't right here. You know,
it's like a bird. I mean,
yeah, it is a bird. That's like around here. There's turkey buzzards all over the place. You never see them flap their wings. You just see them sitting up there circling. And then when I remember taking my warm liner out at the model airfield, and I saw a bunch of turkey buzzards. So I got over top of them and I shut down the motor, and I started flying around, listening to my Vario, and I got a good updraft. I just started circling, and next thing I know, there were 4 turkey buzzards that entered my updraft. Like, I found this one.
This one's mine. Go away.
First. And of course, one of the buzzards came right at the front end of the airplane, wings fully spread, and flew maybe 2 feet over the top of the airplane. It was just an amazing sight. To go out there and fly with the birds, because to them, my plane was another bird. It was a goofy looking big bird, but it was a bird. So they decided
hums
and check it out. It's pretty cool.
It is.
And FPV soaring, I don't see it very often, and I'd like to see it more often. It's kind of a lost art.
Yeah, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, Trappy and them, Team Black Sheep. That's really how I got to know them. Was because of the formation flying they were doing and flying all over.
Surfing.
Yeah, they were doing some. I was like, what the? I mean, I heard guys was flying, a mile out, 2 miles out.
Their mountains are 5 miles away.
I was like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, dude, you should check out these guys. These guys are like sitting on the top of a mountain and flying from one end of the mountain range to the other end of the mountain range. And I'm like, what? They said, yeah, it's like 80 miles.
Have you ever seen that video Long Range is Boring?
Right. They went 80 kilometers. That's nuts.
Oh, have you seen Long Range is Boring? It's like 5 years old now. And he just launches from a mountaintop, and then there's a town below, and he just buzzes through the town, down the roadways, under bridges, and he's 6 or 7 miles away, and he's doing
Holy
this.
Cow.
He's 12 kilometers, so about 5 miles or so out, and his battery is dead. And he's like, I'm never going to climb this mountain. He's like, he realized he doesn't have enough battery power to get back. So he starts searching for a friend's house. He finds it, lands in his friend's yard, picks up his phone, calls him, and says, hey, man, can you charge my batteries and relaunch my plane?
Wait a minute. How did he get radio control back? There's no way.
Oh, you're on top of a mountain, man.
Yeah,
UHF control, no problem, man. And it's in the video. He's 12 kilometers away, and he drops it in his friend's backyard. His friend put 2 batteries in it, launches them, and off he goes.
That's crazy.
Got you covered, homie.
Got you covered, homie.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay, we beat wings to death on this podcast anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I could tell there's passion there when it comes to fixed wing.
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about another one of your passions, and probably where you earned your nickname IBCrazy all the more is antennas. Good segue is that you probably are selling one of the most popular antennas right now for FPV in the TBS Triumph. So,
yeah.
So how did that came about? That's got to be an interesting story.
Well, it is. But the truth is it came out of Trappy's,
imagination.
Well, here's the thing. The truth is, Trappy and I have been friends for a long time.
Definitely.
And one of the things that's very interesting is he's one of the most trustworthy people I've ever met in my life. Seriously. We actually have many business agreements that aren't written down. In fact, we just word of mouth. We just kind of accept these. Where I would normally want a contract in place with anybody else. With him, it's just like, it's good enough. We just kind of agree to this kind of stuff.
That's unheard of.
And you wouldn't expect that from his online personality, but he's one of the most trustworthy people I've ever met. Well, I remember I came out with a Cloverleaf years ago, and that was the first circularly polarized antenna for FPV. And it's been cloned God knows how many times now. And when he got his FAA fine, I was there. I mean, he was 60 miles from my home. So we had met in person 3 days before he made that flight. 2 days before he made that flight. And, he had told me that, I was getting cloned. I was going to be cloned by everybody and their Uncle Mike. And I said, it's not going to be that bad. He said, oh, yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And he was right. But he said, you know what? I don't want to clone you, but I want to do something different. And he had he had hired an engineer to design a different circularly polarized antenna that wasn't my cloverleaf. He didn't want to clone me. He wanted something that was his own. And needless to say, it fell flat on his face. The engineer designed it, sold it to him, and it didn't work. And I kept bugging him about it. I'm like, hey, man, where is this antenna? Where is it? I want to see it. I'm interested in it. And by then, I had come up with the Airblade. I was working on the Cyclone. I mean, I have actually progressed a long way since that original design. And I've been constantly refining my designs, making my designs better, and I still continue to do so this day. And I'm wondering, like, well, if you wanted to join the antenna development, where the heck are you? And I get a call. I get a Skype call from Christoph, Risky D, his one of the three of Team Black Sheep, saying, "Alex, I need your address. I have a box to send you." And I gave him my address, and 2 weeks later, this box shows up with a bunch of parts and some halfway assembled antennas. And I sent Trappy an email, said, "Hey, what's this box of garbage you sent me?" He's like, "It's my failure." I said, "Looks like you spent a lot of money on it." He's like, "Yeah, don't ask." I said, "Well, I'm going to ask. How much?"
Wow.
I said, "On this turd?" "Yep." Like, "So you want me to make it work?" He said, "Well, actually, I sent it to you because if anybody can make it work, you can. But if you can't, oh well. I give up at this point." And so I took it. I literally took all the parts I had, and my operations manager had just moved up from North Carolina. He was literally living in my house with me. And he's sitting at the dinner table finishing up his dinner. And I'm on a whiteboard in my hallway that I try to keep myself organized on. I start doing integral calculus on the whiteboard. And I start yelling at say, hey, do the trig for me, Mark. What's the sine of 30 degrees? He goes, "What? Just here, get a calculator. I'm doing wave calculations. I'm doing wave calculations on a freaking whiteboard in my hallway." And I'm like, "Mark, please tell me the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. He goes, "It is." I'm like, "All right, so I got it. Wave calcs are off. Look." And I'm trying to explain it to him. He's like, "Dude, you're way over my head right now. You lost me when you started drawing on that whiteboard." I'm like, "Well, tell me if this all makes sense." And I pitch it to him, and I explained to him what I was thinking. He goes, "That makes sense, but it seems too easy." And I'm like, "I know it does, but maybe it'll work." It's like I took all the parts, and I basically reinvented the antenna from the ground up, put it on my vector network analyzer, and it looked like absolute crap. It actually, according to my vector network analyzer, it wasn't going to work very well. So I knew I had a lot of work to do because the impedance wasn't right. But I'm like, the wave calcs are right. So even if my impedance isn't right, let's see if the wave is right. So we went out a couple days later and tested these hacked together prototypes that I literally made with cut up circuit boards and a Dremel tool. And it worked. And it worked really well. Even though the SWR was 4-to-1, which is absolutely horrid, I made a video testing the original model with an SWR of 4-to-1 against an immersion Spironet. And I sent Trappy the video. And he was overjoyed because it outperformed the Spironet hands down. It was no contest. And he didn't like the fact that he had to sell Spironets and not my product. He really wanted to sell mine, but my price point's higher because I manufacture everything in the USA.
Right.
So he was really happy that it looked like he would soon have an antenna that he could manufacture that he didn't feel like he was screwing me over with. And that's really why he championed this. He and I were friends, and he felt that immersion was getting over on me, and he didn't like that. And he said, I'm going to design my own, because I can't do this to a friend. And then when he fell flat on his face, he said, "You know what? Help me." And I did, happily. And I did eventually refine it into the TBS Triumph, but the original version actually was a true victory. So, yeah, I see that. But
you bought that at MDX too.
Yeah. Even with the terrible SWR, it showed promise. And then over the next year, I refined it. And it was right after Thanksgiving, I went out to China to visit Trappy in Hong Kong and to finish that project.
Everybody moving over there.
Well, I was moving over there. There's no way. That's more of a different planet than it is a different country. The culture is so far different. I felt very out of place. I mean, very communal, not individualistic at all. It was very hard to get used to. And one of the things that I did while I was over there, the big problem that I had with manufacturing anything in China, you know as well as I do, anything you manufacture in China is going to get cloned. And very frequently, the clone will come out before the authentic.
Right.
So I had the antenna working, but I had to figure out a way to make it clone proof. So what I did is after I had it working, I dismantled the antenna and put 4 impedance transformers in it. So what happens... Okay. Well, and they're so you have to use a very specific connector. In fact, the SMA version would not work. We came out with the RPSMA because I had tweaked the impedance transformers to the point that the SMA plug caused it to fail.
Oh.
The SWR went from 1.3 to a 6.1.
Whoa.
So what I did is I put impedance transformers, which is, it's like cable matches, impedance matching. It's very common in antenna world to match something that's not 50 ohms to 50 ohms with impedance matching. But I put 4 of them in very specific places that you had to know exactly what they were, what you were looking for, and exactly what you have to know exactly what I was doing in order to get it to work. In other words, if somebody clones this, all of a sudden they're gonna be blowing up video transmitters, and they're not gonna know why. They cloned it bit for bit. So they think what they didn't do is they missed at least one, if not 2 impedance transformers. They have no idea what dielectric I use. They have no idea what materials I use. They guessed. And that's the secret to making people not clone it. So eventually somebody's gonna try to clone it. And then when they sell
it's already doing that.
Well, yeah, and what the thing is you kill it, you kill the clones by giving them a bad name. Because every clone is going to start blowing up transmitters because the impedance is going to be wrong. And I designed it that way. And a lot of people think that's pretty shady. Why would you design something so to blow up video transmitters? Well, mine doesn't. Mine works. I just made sure that if somebody copies me, that they fail miserably. So it's kind of, I mean, it's in one, and on one hand, I feel really bad for the people that buy the clones, but on the other hand, you knew the authentic was there and chose to not honor my intellectual property. Now you're blowing up video transmitters. Well, go to the guy in China who ripped me off and see if you can get your money back. Because chances are, the reason he was cheap is because he ripped you off too. And the sooner people realize that they're getting ripped off by these clones, the sooner that'll end.
It's true.
And yeah, I feel bad for the guys that don't know any better, but the truth is, there is no integrity anymore. There is no.
There's a lot of guys, speaking of that, there's a lot of guys claiming frames, that don't have patents. Don't have not one patent.
You can't defend a freaking patent. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. On a frame, you're maybe going to make $30,000 over its lifetime if you're lucky.
Right.
Screw patents.
I know, but there's a reason why it's there.
It's one of those things where a lot of people want cheap stuff, but they don't realize that it actually hurts this hobby just as much as it helps, it's going to hurt more because what's going to do is going to drive a lot of innovation out of this sport because people don't want to build for it.
There's only one innovator left that I've worked with. There's only one left. I've worked with 18 different people, and all of them have been driven away by clones. There's only one person that I've been doing work with left. And the truth is he's almost gone too. And it's very sad to see this because it's like we're not being honorable. I mean, you when you see a finished product, somebody had to manufacture. Somebody had to put work into it. But what you're missing is how much time somebody came in to design it and refine it and bring it to a finished product. And therein lies the problem with the clone. Not only are they taking your innovation and your design, they're taking your market. You've worked for both, and they're stealing both. And that's a shame. And it's very unfortunate. And unless you get into a market in its infancy, which I got into the antenna market when it was just budding, and Hyperlink owned it, and Hyperlink turned their back on us. We said we wanted something better. Elcom and Hyperlink went, yeah, you're too small. We don't care. And then what happened? I stepped in and filled that void. And then Hyperlink and Elcom 3 years ago tried to get into it. And Sentry, Jason from FPV Labs said, you got to overthrow this guy, first. And they said, oh, we can handle him. I said, no, I don't think you can. You're what drove him to become him. Good luck. Your 1.3 gigahertz patch. Yeah, it's a turd. Let me show you why, because he hacked it and fixed it. You're going to have to overthrow that guy. So the campaign lasted 1.5 years and they gave up because the entrance barrier at that point was too high. And that's the problem with people who are innovative. Is the entrance barrier is high at this point. If you have an innovation, you're going to get ripped off because people are watching you, and you don't know how not to get ripped off. And
it's the thing is, though, it's like, go ahead, Evan.
I've been there in that situation. So, and when you develop something, and everybody's asking about it, right? You it's coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Some dude is gonna go, oh, I know how to make that exact thing, and he can make it for $5 instead of it costs you $35, right?
Right, exactly.
So now he can turn around and sell it for $8, and you've lost $35 plus the time it took you to design the product because he sees it as already been made, and he's then overcome all your production time.
Right.
It's just and the
you've already made the mistakes for him. All the mistakes, all the errors, all the trials, the hundreds of hours you spent on a computer has already been done.
Right.
And he just takes it. And that's an unfortunate side. And I talk to a lot of people in this industry that get cloned. I'm not the only one that's been cloned. But the good thing is strangely enough, the way I protected the reason I'm still in business is because I open sourced. I gave it away because I understand that manufacturing in the U.S. is expensive, and my product's going to be expensive. So if it's too expensive, I'm going to show you how to build it. And the thing is it's like you don't have to buy from me. Just don't buy a clone, please. Just build it yourself, and I will help you. I will be right there. If you can't afford it, or if you just think it's too expensive, I will help you build it. I'm always there for you. But on the other hand, it protected me because now the people who wanted to clone didn't buy my product. They didn't have to. I had a tutorial out there. And because those cloners are cheap and dishonest, they went off the tutorial rather than buying the product that had all of my mistakes refined out of it. So they had to make all of my mistakes and learn from all of my mistakes to compete with me. So they had to have that learning curve. And guess what?
They're always
by the time they figured it out, I was well past that product onto something new. And that's where they stopped. They're not cloning what I have right now because they're not looking at it. They're looking at what I made 5 years ago, and I'm years ahead of that. I'm way beyond that. I don't even look at that anymore, for goodness sake.
Okay, so, Alex, I got a couple questions for you.
Shoot.
Okay. So, there's a Cloverleaf, which is a three-prong helicopter.
Right.
Circular polarized helicopter. I don't know why I keep saying helicopter.
I know you have a hat that says Heli Direct. That's why.
I know, but sorry. Anyway, but antenna, circularly polarized antenna, right? And then you have the air blade, right?
Yep.
And that is 4 or 5. 5. Okay, so what do you?
4 is the absolute worst number of lobes you can have due to wave propagation. As strange as it sounds.
Okay, so then the skew, and the clover, there was a time when people would say, if you're going to go long range or you're going out distance, you use this. And if you're going to be flying around yourself close in, you use this antenna.
Right.
You know, and
that's so true.
And so, is the Airblade meant more for close up or distance?
Well, it's like this. There are a few properties that make an antenna work, and to determine what you want to do with it. And they are gain, front to back ratio, and axial ratio. The higher the gain, the longer the theoretical range. I said theoretical because maximum range is seldom realized. The Airblade is quite simply the best CP Omni I've ever built, and it's the best I've ever designed. And yes, it was cloned, and then the clone failed because it fell apart. It was nowhere near as durable as mine. It got a reputation for being crap, and it disappeared.
Dude, I bought this thing. I've crashed it like 40 times. I just bend it back into shape. It still works.
You're not crashing hard enough because people break those things. It usually takes them a bit, but you need to get out and fly more.
Hey, wait a minute. Your stuff is expensive. I don't want to break it. What are you talking about? I love your stuff, though.
Business. I'm trying to suck you in.
Repeat customers. That's how it works.
I make them as durable as I can, but some people find imaginative ways to break things.
Well, you gave me the greatest advice though. Is that like you don't stick these things straight up? You stick them like out the back like that, and it has a place to go. Yeah.
I told people when you mount them, use a right angle. If it's going to be mounted to the top of the frame, use a right angle adapter so the adapter takes the crash rather than the antenna. If you do a little bit of work to protect the antenna, it'll last the life of the frame. But a lot of people don't. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't, and that happens. But to get back to the Airblade is a 1.5 dBIC in a 0.79 axial ratio, which means it rotates the signal axial ratio is the ability to rotate the signal. So you've got a moderate gain and really, really high axial ratio for an Omni. And an axial ratio equates to clarity. And the way I explain it like this is every signal, no matter how it's emitted, has a certain part of one rotation and a certain part of the other. If you rotate right hand and left hand equally strong, we call that linear because the horizontal component will cancel. So if you would take your fingers in the air and spin them, take your right hand, rotate it right, take your left hand, rotate it left. Now do it at the same time. You'll notice that your fingers are always opposed, but they're still moving up and down at the same speed. So linear polarization is equally right and left. Axial ratio is how much those two are separated. So when we say right-hand antenna or left-hand antenna, we're talking about right-hand or left-hand dominant. And the more dominant the antenna is, the better the signal clarity is going to be. So the axial ratio equates to clarity. And that's one of the big things. And on a directional antenna, we have front-to-back ratio. And that's, again, clarity again. So you've got the Airblade, the really, really high axial ratio and moderate gain, which makes it really good for just about anything. The problem when you run into the four-lobe, the skew planar wheel, is the fact that it's actually elliptical. The vertical component is 1.4 times that of the horizontal component because your tilt angle is 45 degrees. The sine of 45 is 0.707. 0.707 plus 0.707 is about 1.4. And where this comes from is the way a circular polarized Omni works is each lobe is a pole. And they're physically at different spaces around the central axis. And when they're emitted, they hit the receiver at different times. And those signals individually add up to a circular wave because they're physically delayed by the physical spacing between them. And that's actually how a circular antenna works. And it turns out that four lobes just happens to be the worst at hitting the right pattern.
Huh. I did not know that.
I've refined it. I finally got four lobes to work with the Cyclone and the rotor antenna. The rotor isn't out yet. It's something I'm working on. And I actually have a prototype sitting somewhere on my desk. Oh, yeah, here it is. It's kind of goofy looking. It's a really strange looking thing.
It is a strange looking thing. Look at that.
Yeah, it's kind of like bent.
It's like it's smushed together.
Right.
I know what it looks like, but I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, right. It looks goofy, but that's because I had to compress the poles in to make it work. The 3-lobe works really well. 5-lobe works really well, but here's the thing. Here's a little secret. Adding lobes does not make the antenna better. When you add lobes, you must tweak the geometry so those poles hit the receiver at the right sequence at the right time. So there's a lot of science that goes into it. Yeah, there's a lot of science that goes into it. That's what I was talking about, wave calcs, wave propagation calcs. That's what I'm doing. I'm timing the poles and the pole space to make sure that it hits at the right time at the right angle. It's not easy, you know.
And that's why they call them IBCrazy.
Yeah. I've got an antenna called the Cyclone. It's low gain. The gain is 0.71, so it's not even 1 dB, but it's got a 0.92 axial ratio. By the way, perfection is 1.0. So 0.92 is really flipping high. We're talking 37 or 38 times more dominant right hand than left hand, which is unheard of in an Omni. But the gain's very low. But the thing is that axial ratio, it's not very good for range because the gain's low. But it's great for punching signals through trees and through buildings and that kind of stuff because that really good tight spiral. And a lot of people, when I try to explain what I mean by axial ratio and tight spiral, I always bring up football. I say, have you ever seen a quarterback throw a wobbly football? If he throws a wobbly football, he's blamed for the receiver not catching it. But if he gets a nice tight spiral and the receiver fumbles it, it doesn't pick it up for whatever reason, guess what? It's the receiver's fault. That's axial ratio. High axial ratio is that nice tight spiral. Crappy axial ratio is that wobbly football that's hard to catch. And that's how it works. So basically what I'm championing right now is higher axial ratio. How do I rotate that signal better, more pure, more, you know, how do I manipulate physics to my advantage? Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm working with right now. You know, the cloverleaf was, I realized the skew planar wheel was elliptical. I literally just pulled a lobe off of it, tweaked the geometry a little bit and said, hey, fix that problem. It works. You know?
Fix that by pulling some
It was an accident. I was literally trying to make a 5 dB IC directional antenna. I was literally trying to make what they call the wheel antenna, but I couldn't get it to rotate. You know, I read all kinds of papers on it that says the signal rotates, the circularly polarized. Bull. It's not. It's not. And I found that out. And when I was like, okay, by trying to get it to rotate, I ended up back at the skew planar wheel. I literally pulled the wheel antenna apart and ended up back at the skew planar wheel. Went, I know there's a problem with this. Let me just yank one lobe out of this like the wheel antenna has and see what happens. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I fixed it. you know?
Slap product. There we go.
Well, I wasn't interested in a business then. You got to understand, I'm an engineer, not a businessman. And my brother said, dude, you have a niche market. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm not a businessman. I'm an engineer. And I kept telling myself that till a business was more or less forced down my throat.
Right.
And then I founded Video Aerial Systems.
Which we're glad you are because we like your products.
Yeah, I mean, well, I do my best. And the thing is, my brother explained this when he met, I don't know if anybody plays soccer, they know who Pele is.
Yes.
And the thing with Pele was everybody was kind of having a good time, and he was shooting at the goal. And it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough for him. And he's like, dude, these are amazing. What's the matter with you? Why do you see your practice? It's not good enough. He's like, the only thing that's not good enough, you've got like a half turn on that ball. And that's about it. He goes, you know what? You're right. And he keeps kicking soccer balls into the goal, refining it. It was good enough for everybody else. But Pele expects the best from Pele. And likewise, Alex expects the best from Alex. And that's what, so you'll often see the same product look different 3 months than it did 3 months ago, and then different 2 months later, because I keep refining it. I'm a small business. I manufacture in the USA. I answer to me, and that's it. So when I come up with improvement, I implement it immediately. So I'm constantly getting better. I'm constantly changing. And when people say, hey, I don't like this, or hey, I like this, guess what? I can implement that the next day. As soon as I figure out how, I can do it. When multi-rotors got popular, people said, you know, your Bluebeam Ultras, I keep smashing them. They're expensive. I came up with the DuraSpec in 2 days. Okay, and I don't know if you guys have seen my video. I smack it with a hammer, hit it with a baseball bat, run it over with a car, do chin-ups from its cable, light it on fire. I mean, I beat the living snot out of that thing. And people had told me I need something more durable. And so I answered the call. I put my brain to work. And that was amazing that it only took me 2 days to do it, but it was literally only 2 days that I literally came up with that. But, and I came up with a Duraspec, and now I've got a V2 because people said, hey, it's too tall. I'm getting it caught on gate. So now it's going to be 1.25 inches tall.
Oh, cool. I like that.
And I actually just sent the CAD files off to have a molding company make a smaller cover. So it's going to get smaller too.
That's cool.
That's the other thing when you deal with me. If you're a customer of mine, give me feedback. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you like. I want to know what you dislike. How can I improve? What can I do better? Of course, price is a big thing. And I'm not willing to farm my stuff out to China. I've got 8 people. Families that work for me. All right. And it's my responsibility to keep them employed. I mean, anybody who's lost a job can tell you what that's like. I'm fighting for their job. So if I don't hear any feedback, if I don't hear anything back, it's much harder for me to fight for their job because I don't know what people want. And the only way I know what people want is they tell me. And then I can work on it. And then when I figure it out, when I get it refined, then my guys can build it. They really are family to me, and I won't throw them under the bus. They're, and we act like a family. We goof off. We have a good time. And, it's not uncommon to see somebody, pull up at lunchtime and say, hey, I got a 6-pack of beer, and we chill out and have lunch, and, we have siesta, we actually will have a siesta. It's okay. I mean, we're not getting hammered, but, it's kind of nice to not, when your boss is sitting next to you eating lunch with a beer in his hand, it's kind of cool,
There's one thing I do want to say about your antennas, which is kind of funny, right? Because, I just started flying with this since Flight Bash, and the funny thing is, I've got 5 of these now. That's your fault, by the way.
I'm happy to help.
It's funny that the antennas have gotten so strong that you can bend them back. They are no longer the weak points, but now the weak point has progressed down to the connector. Now all of a sudden everything's ripping out of the stem of the connector. It's so that's what you need to fix next. How to make that connector stronger.
Read FPV Lab. Read my post on FPV Lab about 4 hours ago. I fixed it.
You fixed it?
Well, I improved it. I don't know if I fixed it.
I don't think you can fix everything.
What people don't understand is when you crash into the dirt, you usually put more strain on the antenna than you crash into concrete. Right. Because what happens, it digs into the dirt and it grabs. As much as you think concrete would hurt it more, it doesn't. Dirt crashes are actually the hardest on a quad frame because they grab, they try to twist the frame apart. And a lot of people have complained to me, hey, I broke your antenna. I'm like, dude, if you broke your antenna, what's left of the frame? How bad is that frame? And because when I sell a Duraspec, it will take that test that I put it through where I smacked it God knows how many times with a hammer. It will take the chin-ups from the cable. It will take me putting a 45-pound barbell, trying to shear off the cable and smacking it with a drilling hammer. It'll take that. So if it breaks on your quad frame, you put more force into it than I did in those tests. Those tests aren't made up. Those are real tests. So if you manage to break it, you did actually put more force into it.
Oh, that's easily done. Yeah.
Yeah. What people don't understand is the equation is mass times velocity squared divided by time squared. So if you're going quite fast and you crash into something that brings it to a sudden halt, you put a lot of force into that frame.
Oh yeah.
And let's face it, remember the Dow indestructible props. They're not indestructible, but they're daggone tough. They're really tough. But I've broken them. Everybody has.
Oh yeah.
You have to understand that when you crash, stuff, even if it's as tough as it can be, will eventually break.
Definitely.
It doesn't. All we can do is give you more crashes before the inevitable happens.
It's very true.
Breaking
I've had gyros fall off of boards because you crashed and you hit the ground so hard. So, I can vouch that. We over G a lot of things that's on the boards. You're talking to a guy whose kill count on video transmitters is 84. That's
I destroyed 84
I would retire.
video transmitters and 76 cameras now.
Ouch. See, he has the budget.
So you've
for
been
it. I
doing
do
this
not.
for a long time, though. You know, that's a lot of people don't know that.
It's called R&D.
Right. But a lot of people
At least that's
don't
what I
know.
tell the IRS.
Right. A lot of people don't know how long you've been doing
Hey, you can
this.
have a little fun along the way with R&D.
How long
well,
have you been doing
that's the other side of it. I mean, I hate blowing up a transmitter as much as the next guy, but the truth is it costs me a lot less than it costs anybody else. For two reasons. One, I get it wholesale. So the same transmitter you're buying for $50, I'm paying $35. You know, because I'm buying them in wholesale in bulk. And the other side of it is that's because my business is FPV, it's a tax deduction, so I don't get taxed on it either. So I allow myself to put my equipment into more intense situations because I lose when that transmitter catches fire. I lost half as much money as somebody else, you know. So, you know, I have a high kill count because I push the limit. I'm doing obstacle dodging. I'm tree dodging. Okay. When you smash an airplane into a tree and the camera's on the front, guess what dies? You know, and that camera is done.
Hey.
When you go out there, when you go out testing equipment, fully intending to push it to its limits, it's going to break.
True.
Okay. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to break this stuff. I mean, sometimes unintentionally, sometimes intentionally breaking it, you know. But that gives me a knowledge base. So when somebody asks me, hey, Alex, what is the best this? Or what should I do here? I can give them my experience. I'm not reading on the internet and guessing. I'm giving them my experience of, yes, I've blown this thing up. It's no good. Or, you know what, this thing has survived so much garbage I've thrown at it. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. So I can give a recommendation based on my personal experience and trust that they are going to have that same experience that I have. And that's important. You know, I know it's frustrating when stuff breaks. I know it's frustrating to learn when stuff isn't working. You know, I understand that. And so, yeah, it's expensive, but you know what? On the other hand, it's also quite fun. So why not?
It's a hobby.
Hey, I got something funny to tell you. You know, when I got involved in doing FPV, we were 1.3. You know, and a buddy of mine
still rocks.
Right, a buddy of mine gave me a 900. You know, like a 900 500 milliwatt. You know, yeah, right. And it's one of those ones that wasn't supposed to be in the U.S. So I actually have like 8 channels, right?
Oh wow! I don't touch those.
Yeah, anyway,
I don't touch those with a 60-foot pole.
It's but I mean, I use it on the band it's supposed to be on, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, but what I'm saying is, I had these antennas, right? I bought these antennas from this guy, and he said, oh, yeah, these are the right antennas. So I put them on, and I'm like flying around for like a month, 2 months go by, and I just like accepted that the interference that I was getting, Fresnel's law, and this, that, and the other, the Fresnel zone, and all this, and just assumed I was getting noise and this, that, and the other. Right. But I just kept flying, right? You know, like, so like, I would take off and I'd be flying out and I'd get out about a quarter mile and I'd get static and the picture would get interrupted and stuff like that. And I'd just keep flying.
Yeah, for sure. Right, yeah.
Right. And everybody, like, I'm bragging about my flying. Oh, yeah, man, I'm flying FPV, blah, blah, blah. And my buddy's like, really? You finally broke a mile? I'm like, yeah, I broke a mile. And he's like, let me see. So he grabs his goggles and he looks at my feet and he goes, what the hell are you doing? He's like,
right, exactly.
He's like, where the hell are you? I'm like a mile out. He's like, a mile? Come back here. So like, I get like within a quarter mile and there's like no static, right? And he goes, okay, so like, that is what your picture is supposed to look like at a mile. Right. And I was like, what? You know?
Yeah, right. What?
You mean I've been flying on like, and he's like, yeah, dude, you flying on like 25%. Your stuff something is wrong. And what it turned out was I grabbed the wrong filter.
Yep.
put it on there, and I think I had like a 2.4 filter on 1.3. You know,
Yeah, that's
so
not going to end well.
Right. So like the fact that I was flying out to a mile was a miracle. You know what I mean?
Right. You're at about a milliwatt at that point.
Right. I shouldn't even been flying that far. And the fact that I just kept charging ahead, you know, oh, right about here, I'm going to lose signal. And just let me ease into the throttle a little bit more and climb up. Okay, there it is again. And everybody was like, dude, I can't believe you was flying through that. That's like unflyable. And I was like, oh. So now, like, when I'm out flying and I get out the distance and I get a little noise, it's like,
I can fly through that.
Yeah.
Fly through that.
What's that?
The thing is, a lot of people have never flown through static. I was flying with Jeremiah Gelza from Stone Blue Airlines, and we flew Peaksview Park. And it's a beautiful park with excellent tree spacing. So all we're doing is tree dodging.
Mm-hmm.
And he swore up and down his Vuzix goggles didn't go blue screen of death. He's like, hey, just show they don't go blue screen of death. And as we're flying there, and I'm like buzzing the trees. I mean, I am 3/4 of a mile away, 6 inches off the deck, cutting the grass with my prop, and there's a whole forest between me and my plane. And my video is just shaky as can be because I've got a forest between me and the plane, but I can see, I know I can fly through it. And he looks at my video feed and he goes, wow, I guess I could fly through a lot more static than that. He's like, I didn't know the video could get that bad and still hold. I'm like, yeah, it'll still hold. And then I'd pop out into a clearing and then everything would clear up until I made it under the next tree, and then it would get weak, but I've already made the whole shot. I've already made that part. So he goes ahead and decides that if I can do it, he can do it. He can do it.
Uh-oh.
His goggles go blue screen. He swore up and down they didn't go blue screen because he never pushed it. He didn't know. And I'm like, dude, they go blue screen. They went blue screen on me. They do have blue screen. It's like, no, mine don't. Mine must have a different firmware. No, you just didn't push it.
Right. You ain't been where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, right. and I remember doing Walkera had asked me to do a review on their new FPV system, and they sent it to me. And I emailed them back after having it 2 days, said, you don't want me to review this because you're not going to like what I have to say. Because rule number 1 with a screen is it doesn't go blue screen. You broke rule number 1 of making an FPV screen.
Right. And
you broke about 6 other rules here. And I wrote, instead of giving them a review, I wrote them a report and said, I would highly suggest you implement this. And they did. They took it to heart, and they did. Which actually impressed me because they
got a decent ship now.
Yeah, well, they didn't then.
I know.
Well, they have a decent helicopter. They had that Ladybug or Ladybird or whatever it is amazing. But the FPV system they had on it when they sent it to me was absolute garbage, and that's a compliment. It was terrible. But they refined it. They took what I said to heart, and they really refined it. Did a nice job on it. So, overall. And I've done that to a lot of people. I said, you don't want me to review this. You really don't want to. I mean, I get people saying, hey, will you review this for me about every week? And I say, have you ever seen me do a review? Are you sure you want to send this to me?
It should be, can you report on this to tell me how crappy?
and the truth is, because my integrity's on the line. My name's on the line. I'm not going to post something. And that's one of the biggest problems with this hobby right now. My sales are down. Ready Made RC, Get FPV, Stone Blue, every vendor I have, their sales are all down. Because what happens, the Chinese have found out that people will sell their souls for free stuff. They'll sell their souls for $30 in free stuff. They'll put a review out there for it. Even if it's total garbage, if they don't, whether they know better and refuse to accept that, or whether they don't know better. And so the Chinese companies get a lot of advertising out of it. They advertise these clones with absolute garbage, and a lot of people are suckered into buying this absolute garbage, and then they're frustrated. They're frustrating thousands of people with their incompetence and their ignorance. I'm not that guy. So, and I refuse to be that guy, And so I tell people, when people say, hey, can I review your product? I say, sure, but here's how you're going to have to do it. It's going to have to be a fair test. You're not going to be biased. you're going to do it head to head. If you're going to compare it to anybody else's product, you need to test them both at the same time, at the same environment, not go make one flight, land, and make another flight. You have to put 2 video transmitters, 2 receivers, whatever, on the vehicle and record them at the same time so that people are seeing both systems at the exact same place at the exact same time. So there's no noise floor changes, no interference, whatever. It's got to be a fair test. So, and a lot of people are saying, well, I just want to do a review. I'm like, well, that's fine, but do you even know how to do a real review? It's really strange. Like I interview people before they review my product because I want it to be, I'm confident in my product. And I want the viewer to be confident in the reviewer that they knew what they were doing. So I don't send stuff out for, a lot of people say, I want to do a punishment test to it. And I say, yeah, well, what is it? Are you just punishing mine? Are you doing a bunch? Oh, I'm gathering a whole bunch of equipment. Good. All right, whatever test you put it through, go for it, dude. Let's punish this thing. And I'll do that. But, I have a lot of confidence in my product. But on the other hand, I did a long-range shootout. And the whole thing that prompted that was Dragon Link said, no, we don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem. And I said, yes, you do. People are complaining about my antennas.
I remember that.
LRS screaming in their ear. They don't know how to read noise floor, but I do. So I did the LRS shootout, and they weren't very happy with it. But Mike Bigelow came to me and said, you know what? That was really what I needed to see. I really needed to see that. And he gave light to a lot of problems we had that we didn't even know about. And we're going to go and fix them. And largely they did. There are a couple problems they could fix, but for the most part, they did a nice job. But it really took me beating them over the head with that review. And they're going, oh, we got to play damage control now. But after I did that review, Thomas Scherer approached me and said, hey, can you review our newest LRS? And this is an expensive system. This is like $700 or something.
Yeah.
It was a big, and I said, look, I don't have time to do it, but if you want to send me 2 transmitters and 10 receivers or something like that so I can retrofit all of my airplanes over to the new Scherer system, I'll do it. By the time I was done with the review, I felt bad about giving it away. It was the absolute worst LRS system I had ever used. And I told him about it, like, man, you got to fix this. Before I do this review, like, there are some problems you have to fix, like, now. One was it didn't fail safe. Like, if you had a servo that drew too much current, it would lock out. It would just shut down. It was like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. That plane is gone. Like,
into the ground she goes.
And you don't even get a fail safe. I'm like, dude, that is huge. And I actually convinced him to send me the schematic, and I fixed it. I actually figured out how to fix the problem. I said, look, you put a capacitor on the power bus. You need to put it on this RF chip right here. And he never went with it. And so I published a video showing people how I hacked it, how to fix it. Like, if you bought a Scherer, do this so you don't lose your aircraft. Here's a hack. That kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Jeremiah from Stone Blue was convinced that it wasn't that bad. And he did a review on the Volantix airplane. And the motor started up for no apparent reason. He had it in his hand. He was explaining what it was. His hand was right by the prop, and it fired up. And he moved his hand away just in time. And it shut down after 3 seconds. He goes, and thank you, Scherer. And that's when he ditched it. And what's sad is Scherer did really, really well in the first LRS shootout. Mm-hmm. But apparently he sold the company to Danish Aviation. They cut too many corners, and they basically polished a very nice turd. And I told the world that. I was like, it was not a good product, and I can't stand behind it. I wanted to. I wanted to convert all my planes over to it after I saw their earlier system. I'm like, man, if you refined that earlier system, I want this thing. Mm-hmm. And it disappointed me. And I've done a lot of reviews like that. They just, where I expected a lot more out of a piece of equipment, and it just didn't deliver. And that's kind of the thing is, there are a lot of people who don't care. They don't really care whether it's good or not. They care about getting the hits on YouTube. They care about getting the free gear. And what you're really doing is you're advertising garbage and hurting the innovators that those people cloned. Don't sell your soul. Your integrity is worth more than a couple of dollars. All right, it's worth something. If you want to do reviews, why don't you approach the innovators and actually review the real product? And do a real review. If there's a problem with it, tell them. You could still publish a review and tell everybody what the innovator's response to your inquiry was. When you uncover a problem, what did the innovator say? Did they say, yeah, you know what, you're right, I'll work on that, or say, no, we don't have a problem, and deny it? That means a lot. And that's one of the biggest things that I see in this industry. It's pettiness. People are cheap. They want everything for next to nothing. They want it to be indestructible, and then they're willing to sell their souls for stuff for free. And it's unfortunate, but that's what's pushed a lot of these innovators into the professional realm, and they're no longer doing the hobby stuff. I'm one of the few that's left, and the truth is, I'm doing a lot of professional work, and that's actually what's keeping my head above water right now. I do work for a lot of very large firms that I'd rather not. I'm sworn to secrecy that I can't tell you who they are, but some of them are work with the DoD. That's really what keeps my company afloat more than anything. And the truth is, when FPV stops being fun, I'll be gone. And that's all there is to it. I mean, I'm still enjoying it, but if it stops being fun, I'll tell everybody, hey guys, there's much more money to be made in the professional world. They're willing to actually
True. It is. There's a lot of money to be made.
We're jumping ship.
Just look at the production videos aspect. Last year I was looking at some stuff that was like 10 to 15 grand, and I was like, why do they have linear polarized antennas on this damn thing?
Because they don't know any better.
I was like, let me hold on. Can I get 5? Can I get 5 antennas sit here now? And that's all we did. That fixed 90% of the issues we were having in that arena.
Well, they just didn't know any better. A lot of those professional companies don't know that I exist. Right. There was a company, and gosh, I can't remember who it was. We met them at Toledo, and my quality manager was with me, and they had the $10,000 and $15,000 rigs, and he started asking me, because he knew that they usually that the antennas and the video systems were often the problem, and he started asking him, what antennas are you using? And I started laughing. He's like, what's so funny? I said, just keep talking. And he's like, oh yeah, we were using the stock antennas like we have on this ship, but that's not what we sell them with. We sell them with circular antennas. He's like, oh yeah, which ones? And I said, Sam, why don't you just stop talking and look? And hanging on the ship in the back that they were about to pick up was an antenna that he built by his own hands. Like, he built that antenna. And he looked at it, he's like, oh, you use the blue beams. Like, Sam, you built that. I said, I can tell by the construction from here, that's your build, because they're all handmade, and the guys put the drone down on the table and said, are you IBCrazy? Like, yeah. He reached out and shook my hand. He's like, man, you have solved so many problems for me.
Yep.
No idea.
Yep.
He's like, this is an honor. It was a great compliment, to hear how it really turned. His business was going nowhere because he couldn't get the video he needed. And he just tried them on a whim and they worked. And he was like, wow, that was really it. It's a huge compliment to see people say that, and I've got a few of those. I actually had a professor a professor that taught antenna theory at the Ohio State University give me a compliment like that. we sent the crosshair antenna out for the anechoic chamber testing to verify that everything was as I simulated it. And now, of course, it's done by students. That first of all, they hooked it up wrong as a football bat. But beyond that, it worked, and it obviously worked. It worked really well. And the professor took a look at it because the students couldn't figure out how it was actually circularly polarized. The professor couldn't figure it out either. And so he got a hold of me and asked, through the grapevine, actually Ready-Made RC did the test. And he got a hold of me through the grapevine. I mean, he got me through Ready-Made RC, and he asked me, how does this thing work? How do you get that kind of signal? And I led him on, and I said, I was told, as a side note, in college, in my antenna course, that, by the way, I got a C in. Go figure, I got a C in my antenna course in college. And I struggled to get that C. There's a difference. I didn't care then because I had no application. Now I do. So it's the passion really has changed that.
Yeah.
I said, you can see that it's basically a set of cross dipoles. He said, yeah, but there's no phase match. I said, yeah, there is. I said, where? I said, simple. If I make a dipole too short, what happens? It becomes capacitive, right? He goes, yeah, well, what if I make it too long? He's like, well, it becomes inductive. Well, doesn't capacitance lead inductance? He said, yeah, technically, yeah, it does, but how does that have to do with it? He said, one element's long, one element's short. The short one leads by 45, the long one lags by 45 degrees. He goes, oh my God, he's like, of all the years I've been doing antennas, I've never seen anybody actually implement that. And he's like, if you would have asked me if that would have worked, I would have told you no. He's like, I would have told my students this only works in theory. He's like, I can actually tell them it works in practice. He's like, this is amazing. He said, can you show me the calculations? And so I sent him all my calculations. He's like, this is amazing. And when you have a college professor, the PhD, that teaches antenna theory, and you just blew his mind, you don't get a bigger compliment than that. All right?
True.
You don't get a bigger compliment. That was probably the biggest compliment I ever got in my life.
That's cool though, because real world meets book world, and real world and practice and experimenting wins.
Yeah, well, the thing is very often that one thing I learned in college is that I know nothing. But the biggest lesson I learned in college is I know nothing, because everything works really well on paper. You can make paper do anything, but the real world doesn't work that way.
Yep, real world throws a lot of obstacles in your face.
Yeah, and that's what I learned. In fact, one of my I get asked a lot of times, and this is strange, but people ask me all the time, "What are your thoughts on college?" Because a lot of people in this hobby, they have kids that are ready to go to college, and they see me, they know I'm a college grad and all that kind of stuff. And they say, "What are your thoughts on college?" I tell them honestly, it slowed me down. There were many better paths I could have taken than college.
Only if you have the drive, though.
Yeah,
you have to have the drive.
You have to have the ambition to do it. I'm self-taught in antenna theory. I'm completely self-taught. Other than what little notes I got from that class. And by the way, if I took that antenna class, I would bomb it right now. I would not do well in it. Okay, because I couldn't apply it. But when I was able to get my hands on it, the world changed.
Cool.
I could see it. I could make it work. And I tell people, I don't care whether you go to college. That's not what I care about. I'd rather hire somebody that's never been inside, never seen a college, that's ambitious, than somebody with a PhD that doesn't really care. Your ambition is what's the most important. And I was interviewed a while ago by a news station. I say, I hear a lot of people say, follow your dreams. And I tell people, I hear that a lot, and that's one of the worst pieces of advice anybody could ever give you. Don't blindly follow your dreams. Keep your dreams alive and focus on reality. But take your dreams, bring your dreams and your passion with you. Don't leave them at home. Go where life takes you and carry your dreams and passion with you. That's what leads you to success. Because if you follow your dreams, they will never be a reality because they were never found in your reality. if you're working in reality and you're carrying your dreams with you, that's how you make your dreams happen.
True.
And that is it. It's not going to college. It's not it's not being, again, going to college helps. Being born fortunate, being born in a wealthy family or whatever, that helps. But the truth is it doesn't really matter that much. What really matters is your ambition. If you're ambitious, you'll figure it out.
Right.
I have my favorite, one of my dog's favorite toy in here is a Sima X5C quadcopter. And I found it, and it's her absolute. We go out in the yard, and she goes and chases it and chews it up. And after about 100 flights, I go buy a new one because it's got too many teeth holes in it. And and a bunch of people saw the video I did on that where I'm playing with my dog. It was the only thing I ever gave a good review. It's the only good review I've ever done in my life.
It's a cheap little toy.
And some people took that to heart. I met some people from Georgia at Flight Fest, and they said, we did your range mod hack to the radio, and then we did your video mod hack to make it FPV, but then we took it one step further, and we hacked the flight controller and uploaded the original Multi-Wii onto the Sima X5. And they're starting a racing league where you can buy this quadcopter for like $35 or something. And they have they 3D printed a pod with an FPV system that straps on it. The channel's already set. You plug it in, strap it on, and you go race with a $35 quad. It's fully aerobatic. It's a full Multi-Wii. And the thing is, you can set your PIDs on the radio. They change the buttons to change the PID settings.
That's smart.
Nice.
Full acro. They modified the life out of this. So they took my research and ran with it.
Do you remember who they're called?
I want them to get in touch with me because I never got their phone number.
Oh, that sucks. I want to go check that. I want to know.
I'm watching my email, waiting for the email to come through because I said, so why didn't you publish this? They said, because we don't have any presence. You do. We want you to teach everybody how we do this. I'm like, sure, sold. Like, get on with me. And it's bumming me out. Here it is. What is it, Wednesday? I haven't heard from them. Guys, I want to know how you do this. This is awesome. We can get people racing these quadcopters for next to nothing. They don't have to spend a fortune on it. They can learn PID tuning and all that stuff. This really, really cheap quadcopter that's a blast to fly already.
That's awesome.
You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to happen with somebody passionate. I know. The wild thing was who figured out how to hack it, and the same guy who hacked it was the same guy who made that pod. He's still in high school.
Oh yeah.
He learned how to use a 3D printer. He learned 3D software. He taught himself how to solder. He taught himself to hack into that firmware. He taught himself quadcopters. And he's not even maybe he did graduate high school, but he seemed kind of young to me. Of course, I look like if I shave, I look like I'm 18. So,
he actually does.
Yeah,
I've met him. He does.
Really,
I remember.
Yeah. Oh man, it was really. I used to be a field serviceman. I walk out of job sites. They go, "Why'd they send us a 12-year-old?" But it was. But honestly, this guy that came up with this, he's got a passion. For electronics, for 3D modeling, for design, and he's very innovative. I can tell you right now, if he never goes to college, he'll be successful because he's got passion. He's got something burning in there, and he wants to follow it. And he'll always be. I know that will be successful, and that's probably even if it's not RC. Granted, right now he's in radio control because kid, what are you going to do? But that's one of the big things I learned after graduating college, that life is very different than we expected. And I'm one of the people that was fortunate enough to have a good support network because I didn't know anything about business. I had a heck of a product, and I was like, yeah, but I'm not a businessman. I don't know what but it revolutionized FPV. It revolutionized an entire industry, and everybody around me saw it but me. because the only thing I could see was the product and how it performed, or the design and how it performed, and what I wanted to do next. I wasn't looking around at all the lives it would impact and all the things it would change. I had a good support group that saw that for me and pointed me in the right direction. Because the truth is, I would not be here had it not been for all the people who helped me with the stuff that I didn't know.
Definitely.
Sure, I had an interest in design, but I really didn't know much then. I know a lot more now.
Gratitude.
Not saying I know everything, because I'm far from it, but that's one of the things I see a lot with people is, you know, I wasn't out of college, I wasn't out of high school that long ago. I still remember it. I remember what it was like, thinking what real life would be, and then real life slapping me in the face.
Wait a minute, I gotta earn money to live?
Here I am, a college grad, ready to take on the world, silver spoon in hand. They're going, no. You know. But on the other hand, after I had learned and got some experience, I learned that my passion for changing the world is really what did it. And you know, the whole thing behind the antenna thing is I realized it would change. I didn't realize that it would change the FPV world. I knew that it was something innovative, but to me, it would never leave the hall. It would just be kind of a hobby to me, and because my mind couldn't wrap. I couldn't wrap my mind around the concept of what just happened. You know, when I made that thing viable, my head could not get wrapped around what actually happened. The change. I remember when I posted the cloverleaf tutorial with a fever of 103. I was
because
sick.
You were so excited, you didn't care.
I actually I was you know, when you have you get really hot when you have a fever.
Mm-hmm.
It was 12 degrees outside, 12 freaking degrees outside, when I actually finished the design and looked at it and loved it. I built 2 of them up, and I went out and I was so excited I forgot about being sick. But after I had 2 of them built, I went and barfed in the toilet.
Yeah,
well, being outside at 12
hot.
degrees.
I was soaked with sweat. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I was soaked with sweat. And I'm like, the only way I'm going to cool off is to go outside. And if I'm going to go outside, I'm going to go fly this new contraption and see what it does. And it knocked my socks off. I was like, this is amazing. I was out a mile doing loops and rolls on Omnis. I was like, this is amazing. I can't believe it. Came back in, landed the plane, and could hardly pick the plane up because my hands were frozen stiff. You know, walked back inside and wrote the tutorial.
That's awesome.
And before I was done, I had 4 PMs from Jeff Parisi, Handel's Workshop, jumping, say, you don't know what you have. Holy smokes, you know what you have? Do you realize what you just did? And my response to him after I read the 4th PM is I was like, I'm in no mood to deal with you, dude. I'm like, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'm sick as a dog. I'm miserable. Go away. Bye. I mean, that was my response. Like, seriously, go away. I'm sick. I'm miserable. I'll deal with this tomorrow. And sure enough, next day.
Oh, email, yeah. Bright and early.
Yeah. Email. I'm like, finally, I just sent my phone number. Like, dude, seriously, just call me. You know? I shot that PM off, you know, went to go make myself some dinner. And before I even put it in the microwave, my phone rang.
He was ready. He was like,
oh man, he was jumping. He was like, he was so excited. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm excited too, but you are going way over the top. You know? He's like, you don't understand. You've changed FPV. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I built one of those last night. I got signal on 5.8 gigahertz through my daggone house. I'm like, okay. He goes, no, you don't understand. Nobody can use 5.8 gigahertz. It's worthless. It's useless. I can fly with it now. I'm going, oh, wow. Like, I'm starting to wrap my head around this going, you mean we have a whole new band we can use? He's like, yeah, we can use 5.8 now. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. What I didn't realize is that that antenna would make 5.8 gigahertz the most popular band in FPV.
And
He knew it. He saw it coming. I didn't. I had no idea. I was totally lost.
Engineer meets businessman equals business.
Yeah, that's what it was. I didn't see it. And that's one of the things that I struggle with. I don't have vision. I rely on everybody else to have that for me, which is why I like hearing customer feedback. I like hearing from people who have vision because I'm the engineer who can put that to work because I don't have that vision that they do. I have a vision of a product or refining something, but I don't really have the vision that a lot of people I meet do. And listening to them talk about their vision and what they see helps me put perspective on what I do and gets the gears turning, gets the ball rolling. And how do I make their vision a reality? What do I do? What can I do to make that happen? Because I'm not a visionary. I'm just an engineer. I just stumbled on the right thing at the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. So I want to hear a lot of feedback. I want to understand, and today I got a locksmith that got a hold of me because they saw my CNC wire bender on YouTube and said, "Hey, can I build that?" I'm like, "Sure, here are the CAD files. Go build it."
Hey, I'll tell you this right now. Like HD is coming, right? It's inevitable. Yeah,
it's here already. I flew it at Flight Fest.
The antenna? Can you build a better antenna? Because that thing is just freaked out.
Yeah, well, Connects is Amimon is actually sending me a system that I'm going to try to refine the antennas because that is still a limiting factor. You incur a lot of it's a different type of interference. It's freeze framing. It's pixelation, which is just as bad. The only difference is you don't get a warning. It just drops. So I'm going to see if I can fix it. I fixed it. I did a lot of work with the Connects that helped. So their new one is the Pro Sight. And there's a couple other ones. There's FPV Blue now that's out there. I'll probably buy one of those and see what I can do.
What's the main, I mean, okay, so like, is it because it's digital, you either get all the signal or you get anything below 50%, you get no signal, right? Yeah. Is it that? Is it just that, or is it something that can be manipulated?
It can be manipulated. There's a technique called MIMO, which, now the claim with MIMO is that MIMO, you can get more information by utilizing multipathing.
Right.
Okay?
Multi-in, multi-out.
Crap. Don't believe it. It's absolute crap. How can you get more information than what the transmitter sent out? It's crap. But what it is a digital method to mitigate multipathing to give you a cleaner signal. The problem with MIMO is that you incur lag. Multipathing, because it has to reassemble the signal, creates lag. So you get the multipathing makes you seem further and further behind your vehicle instead of seeing interference.
Can you turn on your cameras again?
Yeah.
We went over 2 hours. That's why.
Yeah. So the circularly polarized antennas will fix the lag problem with the HD systems, whereas they fix the scrambling problem on the standard def. So there's still an advantage to having a good antenna out there. It's just not as obvious.
Right.
Poor
choice of words. I didn't mean fix, just improve upon.
Yeah. Well, you've got some problems with HD. HD is far from perfect, and the truth is it's going to be a while before it's really popular. And the big thing, the immediate
only
thing,
because it's $400.
Yeah, well, the immediate thing is I see that it's price. An HD system alone is more than an entire FPV quadcopter setup built ready to go.
True.
Okay, so but the thing is, a lot of people are willing to invest that money to get that picture. But
actually, I'm not. Yeah, actually, I'm interested in the fact that somebody can't stop my video. I'm more interested in that than anything else.
They can. Actually, digital doesn't fix that. It just helps. You get they'll stomp it, but they'll incur lag and breakup and all kind of stuff. But the other thing is, more than just the price. It's the durability. That camera is not as tough as an analog camera. That transmitter is not as tough as an analog transmitter. So you can't crash it as hard. You can't push it as hard before it breaks.
Right.
Another thing is they're more complex. They're harder to use. There's a binding procedure. Then again, I mean, none of this stuff's documented on analog, so maybe that's not harder. But it's more expensive. It's not as durable. And here's the thing that really let me down. I flew that AmiMod system with a pair of Fat Shark Dominator HDs, and it made me mad. You know why it made me mad? Because Fat Shark claims the Dominators are HD.
They're not.
Full feathers.
They're not, yeah.
We had to cut down the cable to fit in my head plays. And when they went to my head plays, like, now this is a game changer. But honestly, I didn't think it was much better in standard definition with the Fat Sharks. But when I plugged them into my head plays with that big immersive screen and that better clarity, then it was like, oh yeah. And when we did it on we did the test on the Kinects where we used the 720p TV, the 37-inch TV, it was like, oh wow, yeah.
That's cool.
Much sharper picture.
Goggles aren't there yet. We might have the transmitter and receiver, but the goggles aren't there yet. The head boxes are there. You know, like I use the head plays and that's there. So the head box, if you get around that big freaking big head box, then you can get that kind of clarity. You can utilize it. But until the goggles actually have that level of clarity, the digital really isn't going to be that popular.
There is one pair of goggles that I bet you can do it. It's the
cinema
ones. Yeah, I have
those.
Yeah,
I have those too. And I didn't get
Screw you guys. And what? Thumbs is not what I want to show you.
Yeah. The Cinemizers are a great goggle. Jeremiah put it best. Cinemizers make standard def look good. They're an amazing goggle, but they're like $1,200.
Oh shit!
They are expensive.
For $250, okay? Yeah. They're cheap, and I like it that way. And you can build a set for you can build a set for $150 actually. If you take all the parts from eBay and get the box from Range Video, you can build them for like $150 if you want to do it yourself.
Yep. Thank you, smartphones.
I have two sets. One I built, the other one I bought. So the limiting factor at HD literally is the screen and the durability as much as it is the price. And with things getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, I mean, I don't understand how the Chinese can manufacture this stuff for the price they do. I really don't. I don't know how anybody makes any money. I mean, how do you hand wind a motor and sell it at a profit for $12? It's like,
well, they're only paying somebody 5 cents per motor.
Yeah, something like that.
It's not 5 like Chinese cents. It's not 5. Trust me, as somebody who came from China, like the working class, they do not get paid well in China.
No, I know they don't. I've been there. I've been to Shenzhen, but even then, the working conditions it's appalling. Okay, let's just say it's bad. I must say the way it works, and the fact they have these benches outside these big factories, and guys will just walk down and go, you you got a job, get in here. Right. Like, you never have to worry about being unemployed in China, but you're not really going to get paid very well. Mm-hmm. But I thought so that was a lot of stuff. But the thing is I don't understand how anybody can make a living. Because not only did the person who made it have to make money, and let's face it, their machining is amazing, but everybody in the supply chain, whoever made the bells of the motor, whoever made the magnets, whoever made the stators and the bearings, they all need to make money. Not only that, the people who owned the factory who made it need to make money. Whoever figured out the packaging and the artwork need to make money. Then they sell it to a vendor who then sells it and has to make money. That motor still costs $12. How did anybody make any money on that thing?
Well, okay, so I got a little idea on that, and I've been watching this market for a long, long time. But one of the great companies that is out today that does great work on stuff, and we can all agree to this: Emacs, originally started making like Supo motors. Remember Supo motors?
I do.
Okay.
I used to rewind them all the time because they didn't varnish them.
Right. So Supo is one of those government companies, right, in China, where actually what it is the name Supo goes from product line to product line through 1,500 different companies, and when you apply to do a commercial permit in China, they tell you, okay, we're going to give you a commercial permit to do this, but first you have to make so many thousands of this within the tolerance of this. And once we certify that you can do this, then you can go on and do your own thing. So what happens is the government ends up with this warehouse full of motor bells, magnets, armatures, and all of these things, and then they go, okay, now we're going to take that and we're going to move it over here and we're going to make motors out of it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And that's like, I've been watching, because Emax has been around for a long, long time.
Yeah,
I mean, I have some of their big blue motors, and remember those big blue motors that they used to carry?
Oh yeah, the DT750.
Yeah, yes. I have a couple of those.
I got one somewhere around here. They started varnishing the windings. Darn it, it's hard. I can't rewind it.
See, so that's what that's what those companies do to get the contracts so they can do whatever they need to do and get certified, because that's how they do it. So you make this, and then your company makes this, and then his company makes this, and then they say, okay, so now that we've got all of these, this meets this quota, this meets this quota, QA or whatever, CA, and then now we can go over to this company and sell it all as parts for a motor, right?
Oh, I got you.
Those are the ways that I remember. That's how it works out in China. I was told this many years ago by one of the guys that used to run Dongyang Motor Company in China.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about China is the manufacturing economy, and the government helps them.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Yeah, they really their government. If you want to be an entrepreneur, the government helps them, as opposed to this country where they go,
here's taxes
first. It's like we get this huge stone wall in front of us. I really, it's no wonder China is the booming economy it is, because they're communal. They work together. They really do, and their government helps them out. It feels like every step I take, it seems like the FAA is working against me. It's like, excuse me, I'm paying your salary with my taxes. Get out of my way.
Well, do you spend more time dealing with the FAA than the FCC?
Oh yeah.
Really?
I spend more time waving my middle finger at the FAA than I. Sometimes when I'm really angry, I wave both.
Well, what do you think about the rules that just passed?
107?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if somebody had an epiphany. I really like them. I mean,
oh my God! Did they realize?
They're really good.
We already wrote this shit.
Well, here's the thing. You could tell how big the FAA is, because the division of the FAA we have been hearing from didn't write that. You know that. That came from their SUAS division, which has largely been silent. They've been squashing. They have not let the SUAS division have a word within their own group. They've been keeping them quiet. They've been hushing them. You go away. We'll tell you when we need you. And they actually did a really good job. Now, there's some things on that I don't agree with. Like the daylight requirement, because if you want to avoid a mid-air collision, light up a vehicle at night. You can see it for miles, even if you can light up a tiny whoop, and you can see that for 10 miles from the air. So, like I said, there's a few things I don't agree with, but you know what?
It's a good start.
Overall, I like it.
I
Overall,
was amazed. I was amazed because
Yeah,
I was expecting licenses, permits, and all this stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
hey, it's not
It's
bad.
a federal agency.
Me and my buddy, we went out and had some Popeyes.
Well, here's the thing I can't figure out. The FCC has largely been silent.
True.
I would have to say that at least 97% of pilots don't have a ham radio license.
Exactly.
Mine is KJ4RIV. I'm one of the few that has it.
That's true. And there's many pilots out there that do have FCC certified that are ham operators or amateur radio operators out there. And then there's many that have no clue that they need a ham license.
Yeah.
And then
They go,
there's a
what
few-
power level do I need to be to not have a ham license? It's like,
Right.
25
There is-
milliwatts.
no.
It's like, really?
No.
FCC Part 15 certified on the transmitter. You cannot transmit at all unless that transmitter is stamped FCC Part 15. Yeah, there isn't. No, it's not a power limit. It's a certification. It has to be certified by an independent
I
laboratory to be
gotcha.
FCC Part 15. And here's the thing. Go grab a radio right now.
Oh,
And-
yeah, there's no way.
No, an RC controller and read it. Okay? Or the manual and read it. It says this device is FCC Part 15 compliant. It must accept interference, even that may cause unwanted performance. You're flying a model aircraft. You accept interference, guess what happened to that aircraft? It crashes. Okay?
Now, see,
That's why I'm a ham radio operator, because I don't have that rule. I can create interference that I want on my own band. I don't have to accept interference that isn't mine.
right.
That's a big point of contention. That's one reason to get your ham radio operator license. Here's the other side. If people keep flying without their ham radio license, guess what? The band is going to disappear because the FCC is going to sell it off. They're going to sell it off to cell phone companies, most likely. They're going to sell it off to wireless devices. And guess what? You can't fly anymore because you sold off the band because you wouldn't spend 3 hours and $15 to get a ham radio license. If you want to have FPV in the future, get that license. You need it.
And it's not a hard test to pass.
No,
I know some guys that have passed that test that are not the most book smart.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
They're not, yeah, I mean, you can have a room temperature IQ and pass that.
Exactly.
Not that
Exactly.
hard.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
you know, and
Stuff is very easily explained.
yeah, and the truth is very little of it applies to FPV. Some of it does, and you probably ought to know some of it. But the truth is that you really, to be legal and secure the future of it, you really ought to get it. You know, my operations manager, he has a ham radio license as well. Now, granted, he only uses it for FPV. I actually have a 2-meter radio down in the basement. It's portable, 5-watt. I haven't turned it on in ages, but you know, it's a little different. But you know, that's one thing that we as a community have a problem with. We call ourselves the RC community, but we really don't act like it a lot of times. We don't really work together for many things. It seems like we boil down to a lot of stupid bickering. And I see it all the time. It's like, why are you bickering? Like, over what? You know, this bickering is what is going to be the if there's going to be if the hobby is going to be ruined, it's because we're bickering instead of unifying.
It's the nuisance of the bickering.
Yeah, and when people bicker, I just go away. I don't even get into it. I'm like,
I try to just walk away, man.
I mean, arguing on the internet, it's like,
no, that's fruitless.
Yeah, exactly. It's totally
you're gonna lose. Either way, you lose.
Yeah, right. You lose. You no matter what. You know how you win, you walk away. You know,
Right.
It's one of those things that it's because the community is social media based, and social media is based on bickering anyway.
Right.
That we really haven't
drama.
Yeah, right. We really haven't unified over much of anything, and luckily, a few people have picked up the torch and done it for us. I know there's somebody suing the FAA over registration. I'm glad I didn't register. and I told the FAA I'm not going to, and you can come after me. In fact, please come after me. Let me show you how I'm going to break the rules. Please come after me. Because if they come after me, then I've got a lot of support. I'm the president of the FPVTA. I've got vendors all over. They'd be like throwing. I mean, there'd be lawyers that'd be jumping at it just to be, hey, I'm a UAV representative. I mean, but the thing is the FAA is not stupid. You don't go after the strong. You go after the weak, and they know I'm prepared to take them down and beat them on principle, and they know that. They're not stupid. I was just hoping they were foolish enough to go for it. So then I addressed it to everybody I meet. I say, look, bait the FAA, bait them on the registration, please bait them. Don't register. They did it illegally. It's not right. Beat them. Congress passes laws, not the FAA. There are many things I disagree with that. But in fact, they're making you sign a contract, saying you won't fly FPV and all that kind of stuff. Like no. I got to register in a public database, say I won't fly, basically not say I won't fly a model aircraft. Guess what? If I sign that, you can take me to court. If I can't, you're going to lose. If I do, they'll win. So I tell people all the time, don't register. And if you get caught, email me, call me. I will rally the support you need and you'll win. And you'll be a hero for doing so. I will stand up. I will stand right beside you, in front of you, if I have to. I will not let anybody fail. I'll throw everything I have at it. And and I know Trappy, Raphael Pirker, he will too.
I know Trappy is a stand-up guy. So
yeah, and we will. And that's the thing is, we believe in it, even though a lot of people don't. We have not lost faith. That's probably because we're too stubborn. But
hey, you know what? That number one, that's awesome.
Yeah, we need to be that way.
Yep.
So
this is a good note to drop off on because we're literally at 2 hours,
that's fine.
And Alex, we're definitely gonna have to have you on because I still am not even halfway through my questions.
I know that. Well, catch me another day.
I definitely will. Definitely will. Okay, so people who want to follow you, figure out where you are. How can we watch you on the internet or follow you? Blah blah blah.
My YouTube channels. I'm kind of attempting with what free time I don't have to start a new campaign. I did the campaign, the Success in FPV videos. That'll teach you everything you need to know about FPV. And if you have any questions, send me an email through you can get me on my website, videoaerialsystems.com. But I am going to be launching, and by the way, Video Aerial Systems is also my YouTube channel, but my new campaign, and I'm calling it that because I don't have any better word for it. I'm going to seek out talent in the RC world, the RC community that basically is not seen, and bring it to light, like the guys who hacked the Assignment X5 for Multiwee. There's a company called Foam Casualty out there that makes a CNC foam cutter that I use to cut all of my airplanes, and it's like $4,000, and it can not only can it foam cut airplanes, it's got a router head that can cut carbon fiber, so you can make quad frames and airplanes. For
$4,000, that's cheap. Holy shit!
It's not even $4,000. It's like $4,000, including the freight and all the accessories and stuff you can get on it. Wow. I think the base price is like $3,200, and it's not wood. It's metal. For goodness sake, it's metal. It's like a solid. I bought it thinking well, this will last about 6 months, and here I am running it 3 years later, and I love it.
Oh my gosh.
And even I can program it, which is saying something. But I want to seek these things out. These small companies that nobody knows about. These small developers that just can't seem to get any recognition. And what I want to do is I've got a lot of recognition. I've got a lot of people watching me. And I want to turn that spotlight.
Grow the community.
Other people a chance of the spotlight, so they can show their innovations to the world.
That's awesome.
I really want to be there as the guy who watches it happen, and I want to see these guys become successful with whatever they do, because they deserve some recognition. They put a lot of work into it, and there are a lot of people that want to see this, that just don't. These guys want to present it, and these other guys want to see it, but they don't necessarily connect. And I'd like to be that guy. So I'm basically going to try to be that guy that connects them together.
Awesome.
You know, and hopefully, I'll run into a couple people who have a good idea that I can put to work, and have a new business partner.
Build new stuff.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
Exactly.
Hey, you know, that's how you grow the community, is you spotlight the people that need it, and hopefully the community responds and supports them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the only. Look, I didn't get here by myself. I had a lot of help, and now that I've got that recognition, I'd like to pay it forward, and you know, to these other people who deserve a good bit of recognition for what they've done, and hope that they can push the community forward and pursue whatever dreams they have. That's really my goal. You know, I've had my moment in the spotlight, so to speak, and I would be very happy just to be the guy in the background now. I mean, I'm happy being in the spotlight, but I'd also like to be the guy in the background, helping the guys that nobody knows have their chance. That's really, to me, that's the best thing I can do for the community right now.
Awesome.
So that's great, man.
So, like I said, foam casualties is one. I already plan on sitting down, not only shooting a video with them on what the machine is and what it can do, but how to use it, you know, and that kind of stuff. And I want to, I'm probably going to shoot a video on laser cutting and the basics of laser cutting, because you can get a laser cutter for like $800 now. I don't know squat about 3D printing, but I hope to hook up with somebody who knows about 3D printing. And so we can teach people how to do 3D printing, because you can get them at Best Buy for like $500 or $600 now. You know, I want to teach people Arduino. I mean, you can buy a microcontroller for $10.
Oh, yeah.
And true. And you'd be amazed at what you can do that stupid Arduino. I've got an auto tester that automatically tests my antennas based on Arduino. My CNC wire benders are Arduino based. And I'd love to reach out to people and teach them Arduino. There's a lot of stuff out there. And there are a lot of people using it. And I'd really like to meet with the people that have a passion for these things, and put them on camera, show their passion, and hope it is addictive enough to catch a good following, so that the world doesn't advance by everybody staying silent in their basement doing their own thing. The world advances by one person's idea hits another person, turns that light on, and that other person runs with it, and that hits another person, and it just snowball effects. That's how the human race progresses. So if I can be the guy that connects these people together, that would be a great honor.
There we go. So we're going to convert your name to IB teacher or something.
You know, somebody told me once
Confucius.
That a pastor once told me that everybody has a God-given gift. But the thing is, you'll never know what it is. Somebody has to tell it to you. Everybody has a spiritual gift, and you know, mine is teaching. I've learned that mine is teaching. My last job I had, my last full-time job before I went full-time in video aerial, they had a trainer that got a bunch of material together, and I basically was the guy who gave him all his material. Then he went and left, leaving this void. And my boss comes up to me and says, "You think you can do that?" I'm like, "I could try." And I loved it. And the people loved it. In fact, one of the reasons I quit was they canceled that program. I loved it. I poured my heart and soul into it, and I saw how it was affecting everybody, not just at work, but in their personal lives. They had pride. They knew what they did and why. I built power transformers, and they didn't understand the power transformers is what makes the U.S. electrical grid, the world electrical grid, work. Like, you literally hold the entire world together. And when they canceled the program, it just showed me that they didn't really care about their employees. They didn't really, and they really didn't really care much about the product either. Because the pride wasn't going to go into it, and that I just saw the writing on the wall, at that point, and then they fired my boss and his boss, and I really had a lot of respect for those guys. And so I said, okay, so now you fired my boss and his boss, so who is my boss? And after a week, I finally figured out who my boss was, and I said, hey, man, let's go out to lunch. And he said, I already know what this is about. I said, good, but I'm still buying you lunch. I know you. I know you. I know what's coming, But it was one of those things that, I followed my passion, and I want people to do that. And I want to see more people who work that job that they don't feel appreciated, to maybe discover it in RC the way I did. And if I can do that, if it takes me a year to turn one life around to following their passion and radio control and making it, I think it was worth it.
Definitely.
So I'm not worried. I already turned my hobby into my dream into my life. So now it's time to help other people do that.
Cool. And for anybody who's going to Drone Nationals, he's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Elvan's going to be on his couch drinking. Watching because it's going to be probably 103 degrees up there. But you know what?
Hey,
it'll be awesome.
Everybody root for the pink plane. That's mine.
Pink plane.
The one that's hot pink will be mine.
Hot pink with rockets that's going to explode to get him kicked out.
That's right.
I'm going to give you a little tip, okay?
Yeah.
Tip. Here's the tip. Bring extra water and ice in a rag for him.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a good.
He doesn't do very well in high heat.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, dude, I remember that. You I thought we was gonna be calling paramedics. I thought I'm standing next to this dude and he dies. I'm going to jail.
Well, my girlfriend's a doctor, right?
I didn't know. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with
Yeah, I
you?
went to stand up. I was frustrated. I was shaking for no apparent reason. I went to stand up. I collapsed right at his feet.
I'm like, what the hell?
I had no idea.
I know who he was, so when he went down, it was like, whoa, trying to reach out and for him. But, it's just still trippy to just walk past somebody and they go down. And you're like, what the hell happened? And then you realize he's going through heat exposure,
I was dehydrated is what it was.
Yeah. He was,
I just didn't know it. Well, I was so caught up in all the commotion that I just didn't pay attention to the fact that I was dehydrated.
Yeah, that he was losing water.
Yeah, it was
quick.
It was rough.
All right.
It was. I'm glad you reminded me because if you wouldn't have, I would have forgot. I would have forgot.
Sorry.
There we go. He got into the last word.
Definitely a strange thing for me too.
Yeah,
I don't see too many, people pass out from, being dehydrated.
I've seen it in sports.
I've had some.
Shoot.
I've had worse happen. But mainly it's because I get caught up in the moment and I get so obsessed with what's going on that I completely neglect my body going, warning, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem.
I go through that too much sugar problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those things, and that's a problem with that's the flip side of being passionate. I'm so passionate about this stuff. Sometimes I neglect my own health.
Yep. True.
Come on. I went and flew an airplane outside because I was so happy about it, despite 10 seconds earlier barfing in a toilet.
Right.
And it's 12 degrees outside. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. So that's the kind of guy I am.
We're glad to have you in this hobby and sport because it's always great to have a good personality like you. But,
but you gotta take care of yourself, man.
Yeah, everybody tells me that, and I never do it.
All right, we're cutting off here, and then
take care. Have a good night, guys.
And
Thanks.
it's good talking to you. And
as always, keep them flying.
Right on.